It is time. It's time to stop hiding. It's time to stand up. It's time for Christians to work together, to come together, to share their testimony, to inspire hope, and to join their brothers and sisters as we answer the call. Folks, it is time to wake up the lions. And I have an absolute lion with me today, folks. Please welcome to our show author, speaker, trainer, consultant on the warrior servant leader mindset, and host of the Warrior Servant Leader podcast. And like I mentioned, author of a couple different books, Warrior Servant Leader, Life Behind the Badge, and Warrior Servant Leader, Life Behind the Cross. Please welcome Pat Welsh to our show. Pat, how are you doing, brother?
Rory, great. Thanks for having me, brother.
Appreciate you coming on. We got a lot to talk about as we get going. Just tell everybody, who is Pat Welsh? Give them an idea of who you are and where you come from and what brought you here today.
Well, I am 100% Irish. I even took the 23andMe because one of my daughters goes, Dad, you got to take this. I go, honey, I was born in Ireland. I'm 100% Irish. And I took the test, 100% Irish. I don't have 1% of anything else. So I'm a true Irishman and coming up on 68 years old and have had quite the journey from the day 3 days old. I was abandoned in an orphanage in Dublin, Ireland. My birth mother was a widow and couldn't keep me, and here I am, almost 68 years later, and sharing how God's impacted my life and how sometimes I've wasn't listening, to put it frankly. So,
You and me both, man. You and me both. I understand that. He can't make us listen. All he can do is talk and wait for us to wake up, right?
yep, absolutely,
Right.
absolutely.
100%. So you had a pretty interesting life from what I've been reading. I mean, 30 years of frontline law enforcement experience.
Yes, sir. Although I did it completely backwards and this is one of those stories of that, we're all gifted, from Proverbs, uniquely and uh, made and Jeremiah, that, we were loved before we were formed in our mother's womb. We were consecrated, gifted for a purpose. And I fell into that. I was 17 years old when I started college, and everybody said, "Oh, you'll make a great lawyer." So that's the path I took. I got a degree in criminal justice because I hate math, so math was not. I was not going to go business, and then I went straight to law school and got married. Met my wife at a fellowship on campus. She was a sophomore. I was my first semester senior year in college, and so the second year of law school, we got married, and I graduated from law school, and I'm practicing law for 4 years. I was a prosecutor, a DA, and one day I came home. My wife's like, Marilyn's like, Pat, honey, you hate what you're doing. What is it you really want to be doing? And I said, I've wanted to. I felt called to law enforcement since I was 8 or 9 years old. And I think, some of it was, the TV and whatnot, but I just wanted to be a cop. And she said, well, then go do it. So I did. And the next 30 years, and we just had our 45th wedding anniversary. And so many cops get divorced,
Yeah.
but, it's our faith that got us through a lot of tough times in law enforcement and our personal, life and our faith walk. And so that's what I did, uh, um, and did a lot of stuff. So, and that's
For,
kind of what the first book that when I wrote the first book, I retired in 2012 and 2015. I'm like, I have all these stories to share, and I mean, literally, I met the devil on a call, type not type thing. I mean, this kid was possessed. And from that to just all sorts of things. So I wrote that first book.
wow. I mean, let me back up for a minute because 45 years married, congratulations.
Thank you.
You just don't hear that often anymore, and that is one heck of an accomplishment. So,
Thank you.
congratulations to both of you, you and your wife. That's amazing. That is amazing. When you say you met the devil, I mean, that's something you want to expound on? Do you mind me asking?
Sure. It's uh, in my 30 years, that was the most scared I ever was. And it was very early on. I mean, in the first 6 months of me being a cop. And I was 28 years old when I got, sworn in and everything. So I wasn't a young kid, 21-year-old. And my partner and I are at the office and we're doing paperwork and somebody just starts pounding on the back door. And it's like, it's an employee parking area. It wasn't for the general public. And at the same time, somebody's pounding on the door, dispatch is calling our crew number and telling us to respond about 3 blocks down the street from us on a family trouble with an injured teenager. Well, it was mom pounding at the door. She dialed 911 and then I guess just freaked out as hey, the police station's only 3 blocks away. So she ran up, figuring she'd get a cop right away. So we go down. She tells us my son is completely freaked out, and he put his hand through a window, and I don't know what to do. So we told her to stay put. We jumped on our cruiser, drove down the 3 blocks, and this kid, he's 15, 16 years old, is almost like Night of the Living Dead, kind of walking, just very,
Wow.
stomping. And we both thought, Charlie and I both thought he had a knife in his hand, but it was a big shard of glass that he had put his arm through. And so we jump out and he focuses on me because I'm on the passenger side. So I'm on the sidewalk. Charlie bailed out and kind of got around behind him. And I don't, the kid never realized, I don't think he was there. And I'm yelling at him to drop the knife. And he just keeps coming. So Charlie runs up behind him and bear hugs him and just pile drives him into the street right by our cruiser. The artery in his right arm, and he's spurting blood. And Charlie gets him, and Charlie was a competitive weightlifter. I mean, guy
Hmm.
was strong. And so we get him handcuffed, and I had called for a medic, and the fire station was just 2 blocks away from where we were at. Seemed like forever for them to get there, but they get there. We get this kid on a gurney, face down. I'm putting all the pressure I can on his arm, try and stop the bleeding. And the kid and Charlie's sitting on his legs. It was a female medic was in the back with us as a male driver, and Charlie's sitting on his legs, and the kid just starts doing leg lifts. I mean, he's lifting Charlie up in the air, and then he grabs the sheet in his mouth on the gurney and just starts shredding it, shaking his head, and he's growling. And he's telling this female medic who's sitting in the jump seat because we couldn't let go of him. There's nothing she could do. And he starts in this very guttural voice saying the most god awful things of what he would like to do to this female medic. And then this is where it gets the devil. He stops, he starts crying, and he's whimpering, please help me, please help me. And then this voice comes out of him that goes, you can't have him, he's mine. And then he starts with the growl, and I'm yelling, go, go, go to the driver to get us out because the hospital was 5 or 6 blocks away. So we get him into the hospital and they rush him straight up to the operating room. He never passed out. And so the next evening, and we talked to mom. Does he take drugs? This that. We're trying to figure out why he was acting out and put his fist through the glass. She goes, no, he was perfectly fine, and then just suddenly, what he just went off.
Wow.
And so the next evening, Charlie and I stopped by the hospital, the ER, to talk to the emergency room doctor. And I said to him, what kind of drugs was he on? And the doctor goes, none. He had absolutely no alcohol, no drugs. And in fact, the way he was resisting you in the operating room, he lost 6 units, 6 or 7 units of blood. I mean, he was bad. And he goes, resisted and was screaming and fighting until they actually knocked him out. And he goes, he had absolutely nothing in him, and they could not reattach. He severed the uh, a tendon. He goes, we could not reconnect it. So the rest of his life, his hand's going to be like a claw because they could not reconnect the tendon. Um, and so it's like, and I didn't tell him about the growling and the you can't have him and everything, but I'm like, I I was in the presence of evil, and I was really hoping the doctor was going to tell me, oh yeah, he was whacked out on PCP or something, uh, because I had a rosary in my pocket, and I just so much wanted to I'd let go of the kid and pull it out, almost like a exorcist movie,
Wow.
to put it on his forehead or something, because I was scared to death. So
My goodness.
that's one. But then I have a flip side one where I got called to I call him Mini Mike Tyson, um, a sergeant who was a black belt in judo, had been my partner before he got promoted, and two other officers were on a call at this house. And the sergeant, this is 3 o'clock in the morning, sergeant calls me to come to the scene. And I get there and there's the two police cars and an ambulance. So I go in the house, and it's a little bungalow, maybe 700 square feet kind of deal. And it didn't have drywall, it had plaster, old fashioned plaster.
Sure. Yeah.
And when I walked in the front door, there's plaster on the floor, and I hear this rhythmic banging into the wall from the other side of this living room. And this voice going, oh God, boom, oh God, boom. And my sergeant's standing about 10 feet away with his arms crossed. And I go, so, hey, Sergeant, what can I do? He goes, we've been here about 45 minutes and we can't get this guy to voluntarily come with us to go to the hospital to get evaluated for mental health issues. And I said, okay, what do you want me to do? And he goes, well, it's a really small room and you're the smallest guy on duty. So I want you to go in, dive on top of him and kind of hold him down a little bit. And then we'll rush in and try and get him handcuffed. I go, what's the ambulance for? He goes, you or him, because somebody's going to get hurt. So I'm like, uh, can I talk to him for a minute? He goes, knock yourself out. We've been here 45 minutes. Nothing's working. And the whole time and I hadn't seen him yet. The whole time he's banging. Oh God. Oh God. So I turn the corner to the bedroom and I'm like, oh my God, this is Mike Tyson. I mean, shaved head, built, no shirt on, no shoes, no socks, sweating profusely, almost catatonic. And so I walked in, I squatted down, and I kind of measured his arms and then, added another foot or so to be away from him. And I said, hi, I'm Pat. What's your name? Boom. Oh God. Boom. Oh God. And I tried a few other things and absolutely nothing. So I go out into the little living room, and his mom's there, and there were some other adults there. And I said, who's his mama? And she said, I am. I said, is your son religious? And she goes, well, my husband, who died 3 months ago, was the pastor of our small church, and they were very, very close. And my son, he was 28 years old, separated from his wife and children. He's working a couple of jobs, trying to make ends meet. And tonight he just snapped in his bedroom, and he's been doing this for a couple of hours. So I go back in And I squatted down and I needed to get his attention because he wouldn't look at me or anything. He was just staring straight ahead and banging. And so I squatted down. I go, "Who do you pray with?" And he stopped and he turned and he looked at me. Now I could see his eyes and I could tell based on his pupils, he's not on drugs. So I don't know what's going on. I don't know why he's sweating so badly, but at least he's not high on drugs. And he goes, "Nobody." I go, "Well, doesn't Scripture say where two or more are gathered in my name, I'm I'm there with you?" And he said, "Yes, sir." And I'm like, not only is he not high, he's polite. So, so I'm thinking this is good. This is not going to turn into a fight. So I said, "Do me a favor. Uh, if I agree to pray with you, will you get up, get dressed, and let me take you to the hospital to talk to somebody?" I go, "No handcuffs, nothing like that. You just need to talk to somebody about what's going on up here in your head today." And he goes, "Yes, sir." I said, "Then I'll pray with you. Please get up and get dressed." And he did. And I walked him out to the cruiser. He rode in the back behind the cage. I wasn't going to let him sit up front, in case he snaps. And then I prayed with him. I took him to the hospital. And the next evening, I stopped by the hospital because technically they were supposed to keep him for 3 days to do an evaluation. So I got to the hospital, and the ER doc, who was an old Vietnam War medic, so he was old school. And I said, "Hey, how's that guy that I brought in?" And he goes, "Oh, we actually admitted him just to a regular floor, not the psych unit. And let me check. He's already been released." I said, "Well, what's up with him?" He goes, "He had 102 fever and pneumonia, and that's why he was sweating so bad.
Wow.
But just the stress of everything. But I call it a God moment or a holy moment that I was able to connect with him in a non-police traditional way.
Yeah.
Uh, and he got the help that he needed. And I didn't get my butt kicked.
Checks all the boxes, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's a good day. Good
There
day.
you go. So you did 30 years of that life.
27 of it, I was sworn in uniform. I started out in patrol. I worked narcotics, did a bunch of other stuff. Retired as the superintendent of operations for the Dayton Police Department in Dayton, Ohio. We moved to Colorado, and I thought I was done with the active participation in law enforcement. I was in the training mode and on the training circuit at that time. And we went through a wildfire here in Colorado 6 weeks after we moved into our house. It was the largest wildfire in the history of Colorado at the time. And
Wow.
starting two houses away from us burned to the ground within a 1 mile radius, 136 houses burned to the ground. And firefighters and a police officer actually saved our house. Fire hydrant was in our front yard. Uh, and but we had to fight the insurance company for over a year because they took us to arbitration. We had $200,000 in damage, and they said, "Here's $50,000." And I said, "Where'd you come up with that number?" And they go, "We're going to arbitration," and they drug it out for a year. So we went through a lot of stress and whatnot, and it was also a financial burden that we weren't expecting. So my wife's like, "Can you, rather than just be on the training circuit, like get a real job, that has a paycheck kind of deal?" And I said, "Well, I don't want to go back to working full time." And I enjoyed training. I was training all over the country. And so I joined the Colorado Springs Police Department for 3 years and as an investigator. And all I did for 3 years was work human trafficking cases. And
Wow.
what you see of the mustache, it used to be a beard down to here. This is what after 3 years, and I'm like, I'm 60 years old. I'm really too old for this. And so I left doing that, and my wife's like, shave that beard off. And because I worked in a plainclothes undercover unit, and I said, well, can I at least keep the mustache? So I got to keep that. So yeah, that altogether it was 30 years.
My
So,
goodness. I mean, that's quite the accomplished mustache you're sporting there, brother.
oh,
So, and
thank
it's
you.
that's intentional with purpose. I love it. I
Yeah.
absolutely love it. The my goodness. I mean, so you've dealt with some really hard stuff through all this. You've had a lot of these encounters. You and I could probably talk about your various encounters over all this time all day. I'm certain we could, listen to horror stories about human trafficking and stuff.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, also. Somewhere in the middle of all this, you come up with the idea for warrior servant leader mindset.
Hmm.
I mean, you've probably been asked this 100 times, but did this come from, all the years of the police work? Did it come from being adopted? Was it, everything all together? Where was the motivation to not only come up with this, but to share it with everybody?
In hindsight, it
Yeah.
does it does begin with being abandoned in an orphanage. And if someone's adopted, they have two primary questions. Why? Why did my mom keep me? And what's my medical history? Seriously,
Gotcha.
because you
Yeah.
get, is there a history of this, is this in your family? I don't know. I'm adopted kind of
Right.
deal. And so I think that was kind of the initial first step of the journey. Because I lived in the orphanage till I was 16 months old, and
Mm.
then was adopted um, through Catholic Charities by a family in the United States. And again, this is looking in hindsight. When I was 40, my wife and I, my mom and dad, and I have an American born sister that's older than I am, that my parents adopted from when they lived in Cincinnati. So, and she married a guy named Sullivan. And the family that adopted me, my dad was family came from County Limerick. So I was raised with the heritage of being Irish, and my mom was French German, so I also got that, which is really unique. Uh, but we all went to Ireland together. It was my parent in 1997. It was my parents' 50th anniversary. It was our 17th, and my sister's 15th. And again, another holy moment, and this is when the actual warrior servant leader mindset actually kicked in. And I'll shorten it up, but my parents, we all decided we're going to go to Ireland to celebrate our anniversaries. And that was in October, I'm sorry, Thanksgiving of 1996. In
Okay.
January, Sherry, it's in the book. The In January of 1997, on my birth mother's, gosh, well, it was her 80th birthday. No, 79th birthday.
Goodness.
I spoke to her on the phone, and I shared the divine intervention that led to I was not looking for, but uh, and so we went over in September of '97, and my two moms got to spend 3 days together, and the healing that did for my birth mother. I have an Irish born sister who did not know about me, and she's 9 years older than I am. Uh, the healing for my birth mother of always wondering whatever happened to Patrick, but then the healing for me of because you have abandonment issues, if you're adopted, and I didn't dwell on it too much, but so God really, works in mysterious ways, and I thought it, and I liked kind of the 40 years of Moses, wandering in the desert. I met her just a couple months before in person, a couple months before I turned 40.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So so that was the genesis of the warrior servant leader mindset, and
Mhm.
then really studied it and worked on it and see God's hand in every aspect of it.
Nice. Now you mentioned it's in the book. You've got their first book was the Warrior Servant Leader, Life Behind the Badge.
It's in the second book. It's
Okay,
Life Behind the Cross because
gotcha.
and I talk about three holy moments in one chapter of that. The Life Behind the Badge tells some of the stories of being in policing. Some of it's there's a kind of a funny chapter. It's like um, future felons of America, what not to name your child. You know, what not to name your child. You know, I arrested a 19-year-old for double murder, and his God-given birth certificate name was Al Capone Al Pacino. And it's like, yo, why didn't you name him, Einstein?
Right.
You know, so it's
Wow.
in it, that the my faith journey is in the second book, and that's one of the holy moments that I talk about in the book.
Gotcha. In that book, is that I think you mentioned to me that also discusses your son.
Correct. That's one of the other holy moments. And I also talk in there. My wife was diagnosed with ovarian cancer in '04,
Oof.
and when I said I've met the devil, my wife and I have been the personal recipients of a legit, full blown, no medical explanation miracle, and that's in the book. But
Wow. Okay.
so I talk about it.
Goodness.
Our encounters with God, they can be dramatic, they can be very quiet moments, they can be very ordinary moments. But if I have this saying, whatever you're looking for, you'll always find more of it. And if you're looking for the worst in somebody, you'll find it. If you have a young child that doesn't want to go to school, and for whatever reasons, they'll find more reasons not to want to go to school. You know, my tummy hurts, I have a headache, I think I have the flu. So the same is true in our faith walk, that whatever you're looking for, you will always find more of it. And if you're looking for the best in people, if you're looking for Christ in other people, if you're looking for God in your chaos and your circumstances, you will find it. But you have to be looking for it. You know, knock and the door will be open. Well, if you don't knock, it's not going to open itself.
Right.
And it's the same thing with our faith walk. Things don't just happen uh, by chance.
Gotcha. Gotcha. The let me back up for just a second. I hope you'll allow me. Just want to thank your son and you and your family for his
Yeah.
service,
Thank you.
and I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
100%. The warrior servant, leader mindset. Then it sounds like it's based in faith principles and that type of thing. Am I
One
picking that up right?
100%.
Okay.
And I share that in my podcast that I'll talk about every day. And a lot of my initially when I started, a lot of my listeners were in law enforcement. It's expanded. I'm on 6 continents, um,
Nice.
over a dozen countries. Apparently, there are no podcast listeners in Antarctica. That's the, the only place I don't have listeners, but I have people in Russia and China and Pakistan and Israel and all over the place. And it's a broad base. And I talk about, and you and I talked a little earlier. Originally I called it Taco Tuesday, take action, crush obstacles.
Yeah.
And so that would be my theme and my topics is what obstacles are you facing in your life? And I would talk about, you know, the challenges and action steps, but I always bring in how my answers are scripturally based. And but I can relate to you. The principle is 100%. Like my podcast yesterday, I talked about mercy, courage, and kindness, and that's all from Scripture, and faith and forgiveness and and don't forget you can forgive, but we never forget the injury. I mean, and then I talk about that. I go, hey, when Christ was uh, resurrected, uh, the wounds on his hand and his side were still very visible.
Yeah.
Everybody remembered, but the point is, we don't condemn, we don't criticize, and we don't complain about our circumstances or why me. We do Job, it's like, I don't know why God has allowed this in my life, but I'm not going to complain about it. And so that's kind of my message is, and I need to really make this clear because people cringe when they hear the word warrior and, oh, you're in law enforcement and you kill people, kind of whatever. No, that's not what a warrior is. Someone who stands up, shows up, and defends what they believe. And,
Amen.
and
Yeah.
and I'll talk about how Peter was a warrior with his mouth until the garden,
Yeah.
and they all ran. But then he had that transformation, and then he did. And I talked about it yesterday. From one person, Christ, came 12. From those 12 came millions who now follow the one.
Yeah.
And that's what a warrior does. And then the servant puts the wants and needs of others before themselves. And the leader is just, you're a person of impact and influence in the lives that you touch every day. And so that's how I try to live my life, and it's all based on my faith.
Wow. That's impressive, and I'm glad to hear that. Honestly, if you're going to base something on something, that's a nice rock to build that foundation upon. So, congratulations on that. As you were putting this together and building this, warrior servant leader mindset, the what made you want to branch out into the podcasting realm? Obviously, I have some interest there, so I'm
Yeah.
curious.
Uh, in in looking at the gifts and talents that God has blessed me with, and one of them is the gift of gab, and to be able to connect with people and easy to talk to. My wife and kids would hate it. We've traveled all over the country and a little bit in Europe and Spain, and I've never met a stranger. I can talk to I will find something in common with every person I meet if I just ask the right questions, or if I'm a good listener and I hear them say something, uh, I will I'll strike up a conversation. And it just seemed a natural progression. And I'm not a technology guy. I'm scared to death of AI. uh, but and I was just afraid of. I wanted to start podcasting years ago, but I was afraid of the technology until I found Tony Taylor, who was he's a retired firefighter, has some military background, and I was referred to him, and they go, he'll help you, and he just walked me through everything, and now, man, it wasn't as scary and as challenging as I thought it would be, and it's a platform I think God has prepared me for and sent me in the right direction to I don't know, mentor under somebody that knew what they were doing. And so I get to share God's presence in my life and how he can be present in yours.
Wonderful, wonderful. One of the things that I bring up on this podcast an awful lot is spiritual warfare,
Hmm.
because so many people face that and I think don't realize that they're facing it. They feel like if they're not looking at someone with hooves and horns, then, they're not, they're not in that position. It sounds like that's something that you faced many times in your life. Is that fair to say?
Yes, it is. And if you want to read a really good book that makes it all make sense about that spiritual warfare, and it's not about uh, seeing the head spinning around on The Exorcist, is read the Screw Tape Letters. I mean, for me, that was one of the most enlightening books of seeing into the mind and the evil of Satan in 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 a fictional kind of format as far as the book goes. but it is totally principalities and warfare, and it comes in all shapes and sizes.
Yeah. As you have had to deal with that throughout your life, um, how have you overcome it? Is there something that you kind of like notice it and you say, hey, all right, I'm experiencing this now. I need to buckle down. I need to say this prayer. Do you have any kind of, pattern for how you handle it? Or is it more of, hey, I handled it the best way I knew how, and looking back, that's what I was facing?
It There's a couple answers to that, but part of it was formal
Hmm.
education or training. My wife and I both went through the 4-year Denver Biblical Studies um, program. It was 9 months a year for 4 years, 3 hours a week, homework, tests,
Wow.
read companion, not just, and we, from Genesis to Revelation, every single word, every chapter over a period of 4 years, we actually studied it, not just read it. And
Yeah.
we had instructors and we had companion books of faith uh, leaders to learn. I call it the Paul Harvey, learn the rest of the story.
Rest of the story.
You know,
You got it.
yeah, you learn why Philippians was the letter to the Philippians was so radical, and so there was that formal part of the because it says love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul. Well, the mind, it's not enough to just read scripture. You need to understand it and what the message was and how powerful it was to the listening audience then and now. So part of it, and you say, how do I get through these things? Part of it is based on that. Part of it is having mentors that aren't afraid to tell me to get my head out of my butt uh, when I'm getting lazy, or they see something of, hey, you're not on the right track. Um, the other thing, and this is and I'm Catholic, so I understand if listeners that aren't Catholic may not understand or appreciate what I'm about to share, but every single day, there's two things that I do to start my day off to have that armor, if you will, um, for whatever comes my way that day. And that is, I, I have an app on my phone called Laudate, Laudate, and it shares the stories of some saints of that particular day. Like yesterday was Padre Pio, St. Padre Pio.
Okay.
And so I get encouragement and fortification from reading the stories of saints who had it way worse than I'll ever have it, including the loss, of our son. Um, and then I hike, either trail hike or road hike, because I live out in the mountain country area, uh, 3 to 4 miles. And the first 20 minutes of that, I say the rosary. I carry a rosary in my pocket everywhere I go. And I take that quiet time, and so it focuses me. And while I'm praying the rosary, I'll concentrate. Like yesterday, it was the joyful mysteries of the Annunciation, Mary, Saint Gabriel going appearing. You're going to be the mother of God, and then the Annunciation when she goes to see Elizabeth, and John jumps in her womb. Those are joyful mysteries of our faith, and so I actually try to picture those. And as I say the rosary and what that would have meant to a 14-year-old girl, and then how is God appearing in my life? It may not be miraculous with like a full blown angel kind of deal, but you know what what is God telling me? And
Yeah.
so it gets my mind right, if you will. And then when I do, you know, get angry or upset, which the Irish we can do that, uh, is I just try to go back to that. Go back to, hey, the saints, like Saint Teresa of Calcutta. Most people don't know how much she doubted her faith throughout her life, but she had a very close circle of people that she could share that with. That is almost the I'm not worthy kind of doubts at times,
Yeah.
because she kept just seeing the same poverty and death and everything in India. And am I making a difference? Well, she had a very close inner circle that she could share that with. And so I do the same thing. As I have a few folks that I can go to, including mostly my wife, is, I'm really struggling on this particular day or this particular issue or whatever it is. And that keeps me grounded, because you and I were probably brought up in the same mindset as most guys are. If you want it done right, do it yourself. And we develop that egocentric, it's all about me, and by God, I'm gonna, suck it up, buttercup,
Right.
and plow through. And that's not what God wants for us. And quite frankly, my wife, and she didn't tell me this until after I'd retired. I spent 13 years on midnights.
Ouch.
And sometimes my midnights were actually 8 at night to 8 in the morning.
Hmm.
And uh, I was just sleeping during the daytime. And she finally confided, she never ever said a word my entire career until after I retired. And we were having this conversation. And she goes, for half your career, I felt like a single parent raising our kids
Oh, wow.
because I was sleeping. And it's like, I didn't see that. She didn't complain about it, and didn't share it with me, because she was more concerned about, am I pursuing the career I want, and all those kinds of things, and quietly suffered through a lot of things that I never found out about until after I had retired. And, and
Wow.
and I own that. That's on me, that I was blind to that, and should have been taking a different approach. I guess I tell you that because, yeah, I have a great message of warrior servant leader mindset and successes and all that. There's a ton of failures that go with that.
Yeah.
I mean, a
That's one of the
ton.
things that makes it an authentic statement, though. People who have never encountered adversity, who have never had problems, they've never failed before. They come up woefully creditless in this in this industry. When people start talking about things like being a warrior, being a leader, so on and so forth. If you've never had to fight for it, then people don't really want to listen to that. But they do want to listen to somebody who says, "Hey, I've messed up, and that's why I'm telling you this."
Yeah,
So do as I say, not as I've done. Let me save
yeah,
you the scars. So, I mean, it's actually great to hear that that's the position you're coming from.
yeah. I'll tell you just real briefly, and I'm
Yeah.
not sure where we're on time, but uh, is I had a deputy chief in the Reader's Digest version. She came after me. She tried to get me indicted, and the prosecutor's office told her to pound salt. So I was given what they call specs and charges. Long story, but it was all retaliation for something that happened years earlier that I had nothing to do with. But her husband was also a command level. I was a lieutenant. I was a command level at the time of this happening, and he was tossed out of a kind of a feather in your cap position, and I was put into that position. I didn't ask for it.
Hmm.
I didn't want it. Uh, but the chief says it wasn't up for discussion. And so I took that position and did my job and was successful, achieved what the chief wanted. Well, this now deputy chief always had an axe to grind with me because of that, and I'm like, I I wasn't there. It wasn't my choice. I had nothing to do with it. Well, the long and short of it is, uh, I was found and then she found me guilty of the specs and charges. I got a, excuse me, I got a 10-day suspension, and I appealed the suspension, and I won, and I just wanted to be left alone. But for 5 years, the next 5 years, honest to God, my attitude towards her is if she dies before I do and I find out where she's buried, you know what I'm going to do? Drink a case of beer and go,
Right.
yeah. And I held that attitude uh, for 5 years until it finally, through some people and some serious reflection, is like, Pat, she doesn't she give a crap what you think about her. And oh, by the way, you need to forgive her. And so I did. I mean, to
Wow.
be
Yeah.
honest with you, I didn't, I wanted nothing to do with her. I did not want to go face to face with her. And then it would deteriorate probably into an argument. But I genuinely, in my quiet time on that day, when I got that revelation, is I genuinely forgave her in my heart.
Wow.
And then I was reminded of that on Sunday when Erica, uh, Charlie's
Yeah.
wife, tearfully and but genuinely said, "I forgive him."
Yeah. I saw that. Yeah.
And so I know the reality of that. That forgiveness is not hollow. It's not like, oh yeah, I forgive them. Uh, but man, if they were on fire, I wouldn't put them out. Well, then no, you didn't forgive them. So
Right.
yeah, so it's been quite a journey. Paul's right; it's a race, and so we just keep chugging along and picking up our cross and denying ourselves and follow Christ.
Right on. Right on. Before we wrap, how can everybody reach you? You know, if they want to find out more about your mission, your books, your podcast, that type of thing.
Yeah, the books are on Amazon. So, Warrior Servant Leader. If you just string those three words together, that should be the first thing. The Life Behind the Cross is you really get to know me. Life Behind the Badge, if you want some fun to see what cops have to deal with. Uh, is email pjwelshllc@gmail.com. So P is in Patrick, J is John, WELSHLLC@gmail.com. If you're on LinkedIn, just Pat Welsh, comma JD. Connect with me. That's where our newsletter there's almost 900 people subscribe to the Warrior Servant Leader podcast newsletter through my LinkedIn account. And then our podcast is Warrior Servant Leader podcast, and it's on it. You name it. If you're an Apple person, Google, Chrome, whatever, Spotify, we're on every platform. And I drop episodes every Tuesday.
Nice. Nice. All right. I appreciate that. We'll make sure that stuff's in the show notes. As we wrap up, any parting thought or last piece of advice or just something you want to maybe, leave people with in terms of, your mission, what you do, helping them, anything. What do you want to leave them with today?
Uh, Two things were in St. Carlo Acutis said this 15-year-old kid before he died of leukemia, but this was his sentence that touches me the most is we're all born unique. Sadly, many of us die as photocopies.
Oh,
So, so know you are born and created uniquely, and don't let anybody else try to fool you into being a mini me photocopy of them. And then, and this was, I live by this motto: always strive to do the right thing at the right time, the right way, and for the right reasons, because that's what a warrior servant leader does.
nice. Nice. I love that. You said that earlier. I love that. Pat, it's quite a mission, brother. It really is. And you've got the goods, you got the stuff here, the books, the podcast, the whole nine yards. I hope people take advantage of it. Folks, look this up. Check out these books. Listen to his podcast. I did. It's great. You're gonna love it. Really good ideas. And just I tell you what, Pat, I appreciate everything you brought to the show today. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your experience with how God's changed your life. It's been very helpful to a lot of people.
Rory, thank you. If it wasn't for you reaching out through the platforms that we're on,
Mhm.
I wouldn't have this opportunity. So, man, kudos to you. I really appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Love you, man.
You too. Folks, it is time. It's time to wake up the lions. But more than that, it's time for you to take your rightful place with your brothers and your sisters and let them hear you roar. Folks, the world is ready. You're ready. You just have to believe it.